Hello and welcome to Firstpost Spotlight, where we bring you stories that matter to you from all across the world. From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, we shed light on issues that shape our world. I'm Alison Lagrange, live from Durban, South Africa. Let's begin with the top headlines. China's President Xi Jinping speaks with his Brazilian counterpart, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, and says that their countries together could set an example of unity and self-reliance for the global South. US President Donald Trump to meet South Korean President on the 25th of August in Washington to discuss strengthening bilateral ties and economic security partnership. This will be their first meeting since the South Korean president took office in June. The Pakistan Army says it has killed at least 50 militants along the border with Afghanistan in the past 4 days during targeted operations in the Balochistan province. European Union leaders welcome Donald Trump's efforts toward ending Russia's war against Ukraine and stress the inherent right of Ukraine to choose its own destiny, just 3 days before the US president is due to meet his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin. And the Thai army says a soldier was injured by a landmine blast near the Cambodian border, days after the Southeast Asian neighbors agreed to a ceasefire following last month's deadly 5-day conflict. Hello and welcome. Ahead of the much-awaited Alaska summit between the US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin to end the war in Ukraine, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky is on an intense diplomatic push. His aim? To win support from Russia's long-standing partners, including India, and to ensure Ukraine gets a seat at the negotiation table in Alaska, where so far Kiev has not been invited. Zelensky called Prime Minister Narendra Modi just days after Modi spoke to Putin on a range of issues, including the war in Ukraine. The Ukrainian president urged India to use its leverage over Russia. Zelensky underlined that all decisions on Ukraine must include Kiev's participation. Without naming the Alaska summit, Zelensky opposed the prospect of any deal made behind Ukraine's back. Zelensky also urged India to limit Russian energy exports, especially oil, which he says are funding the war. The Ukrainian leader also raised the issue of sanctions against Russia, though India did not mention this in its readout. Now, India's warm ties with Moscow, including crude oil purchases and defense supplies, have drawn criticism from the West. US President Donald Trump has already announced trade penalties on India over continued Russian oil purchases. New Delhi has responded not exactly by stopping the Russian oil purchases, but by diversifying its energy import needs. Towards this, Africa's largest oil producer, Nigeria, along with others in West Asia, have reached India's priority list as key supplier. The Ukrainian president announced that he will meet with Prime Minister Modi in person next month on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly in New York. Prime Minister Modi reiterated India's consistent position, calling for an early, peaceful resolution of the conflict. Towards this exact resolution, India has welcomed the August 15th meeting in Alaska. New Delhi has linked it to Prime Minister Modi's long-stated view that this is not an era of war. India has repeatedly expressed the readiness to support efforts toward lasting and durable peace. Zelensky also spoke with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. They discussed the latest on the war and bilateral ties. Again, without mentioning the Alaska talks, Zelensky said that Kiev and Riyadh agreed on the dangers of any decisions taken without Ukraine's participation. All of this as the clock ticks toward that high-stakes Alaska summit. Trump and Putin face to face, with global pressure building for a ceasefire. And moving on, tensions are rising in the South China Sea. This time, the flashpoint is reportedly at the northern edge of the Philippines. According to the Philippines Navy, on the 17th of August, two Chinese Coast Guard vessels, the 3301 and the 3304, were spotted near Mavulas Island in Batañas. That's the Philippines' northernmost territory. It was 8 p.m. local time when the Philippines Navy patrol vessel spotted the Chinese vessels. The Philippines Navy claims it immediately sent radio warnings. A video clip shared by the Navy shows one of its personnel radioing the Chinese vessel.
Calling Chinese Coast Guard vessels 3301 and 3304. This is Philippine Government Vessel 35 on Channel 16. You are approaching Philippine Contagious Zone. You're advised to leave immediately. Over.
But despite repeated warnings, the Philippines Navy Northern Luzon Naval Command said that the Chinese ships did not budge. He said that they only left 3 hours later, after the Philippines patrol vessel maintained what the Navy calls assertive presence. The Naval condemned the unauthorized presence of Chinese vessels near the country's waters. Now, the recent incursion occurred well within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone, the waters that the Philippines has jurisdiction and sovereign rights to. And this wasn't an isolated incident. It's the latest in a string of maritime incursions. In June alone, 49 Chinese ships were spotted near the Philippines' beaches. The highest number of Chinese vessels spotted in a single month since the start of the year. The South China Sea is vital. More than 60% of global maritime trade passes through it. That's $3.4 trillion worth of cargo each year. It is also rich in fish and resources. Millions depend on it for their livelihoods. China claims historical rights over most of the South China Sea. But in 2016, an international tribunal rejected that claim. Still, Beijing keeps coming near the Scarborough Shoal, near the Spratly Islands, and now near Mavulas Island. All of it claimed by China as its own territory. In recent years, encounters have turned dangerous. Chinese and Filipino forces have clashed with swords, spears, and even bare hands. China's Coast Guard has fired water cannons, rammed patrol ships, and blocked resupply missions. And just this Monday, in a bizarre twist, a Chinese Coast Guard vessel collided with its own warship. Why? Because it was chasing a Philippine Coast Guard ship near the Scarborough Shoal and made a risky move. The South China Sea is a powder keg. Every week brings a new provocation. Every month, the stakes get higher. And every encounter feels like a test of patience, strength, and sovereignty. And now let's move to the UK, where the Prime Minister has a new warning. It's short, it's clear, and it's tough. Keir Starmer has drawn a red line. In a recent post, he issued a firm warning to illegal immigrants, saying that those who enter the UK unlawfully will face immediate detention and removal. So, no exceptions, no long waits, and no drawn-out appeals. The recent statement comes after Britain's Labour government expanded the Deport Now, Appeal Later scheme. The government tripled the number of countries involved from 8 to 23. The scheme targets foreign nationals convicted of criminal offences. Earlier, the scheme allowed convicted criminals to stay in the UK and appeal against the conviction. However, under the new rule, they will be deported immediately after conviction. They will technically have the right to appeal, but that would be done remotely from their home country. Starmer says that for too long, foreign criminals have stayed in the UK for months, even years, while appeals drag on. That ends now, he warns. Since the Labour government took office in July of 2024, over 5,200 foreign nationals have been deported. That's a 14% increase from last year. The government has allotted £5 million, amounting to around $6.5 million, to deploy specialist staff across nearly 80 jails in England and Wales and accelerate the removals and deportations. And India is now on the Deport First list. This means that any Indian convicted of a crime or caught entering the UK illegally can be removed from the country before the case is heard in court. According to the last UK census data, around 920,000 Indians resided in the UK in 2021. For Indians without proper documentation, the risk is now looming large. Recent data revealed that Indian students and workers are among the largest groups of foreigners to have left the UK in 2024 due to the tougher immigration rules. According to the Office for National Statistics, or the ONS, around 58,000 Indians emigrated from the UK in 2024. This was followed by Chinese students and workers at 45,000. Total emigration, or those leaving the country, rose by around 11% to around 517,000 in the same year. And it's not just about illegal entry. The new Border Security Asylum and Immigration Bill strips refugee protection from those convicted of notifiable sex offences. The UK is already enforcing the rules. Last week, the first small boat immigrants were detained under a new returns treaty with France in a one-in, one-out deal. And then came Operation Equalise, a week-long enforcement drive that triggered and targeted illegal delivery riders. Around 1,700 people were questioned and 280 were arrested. Now, the Labour government is stern about securing its borders, and in so doing, it is borrowing a few pages from Donald Trump's playbook. Rapid deportations, high visibility raids, and tough border messaging. For now, Britain's message is blunt. The rules are tougher, the net is wider, and the clock between arrest and deportation is ticking faster than ever. For those on the wrong side of the law, the next knock on the door could come sooner than they think. And finally, shifting focus to India. The country's apex court has ordered authorities in capital Delhi and the surrounding suburbs to round up all stray dogs and move them to shelters, citing rising dog bite cases and the risk of rabies. Issuing the order that covers Delhi, Noida, Gurugram and Ghaziabad, the two-judge Supreme Court bench called the situation extremely grim. One of the judges said, and I quote, "Whether sterilized or not, society should be free from stray dogs," unquote. He added that not a single stray should be seen in any locality or outskirts, and that authorities must start picking them up immediately and move them far away. The court warned that infants and children must be protected at all costs and that no sentiment should override public safety. The court called dog relocation a progressive exercise and ordered authorities to begin with shelters for 5,000 dogs in the next 6 to 8 months. The court also said a helpline must be live within a week to ensure dogs involved in bites are caught within 4 hours. The order comes amid alarming national figures of stray dog menace. Over 3.7 million dog bite cases were reported nationwide in 2024. Maharashtra led with over 485,000, followed by Tamil Nadu and Gujarat. Delhi reported over 25,000 cases of dog bites. Meanwhile, the capital's stray dog population is now above 1 million. up from 560,000 in 2009. Those backing the court order say the data on dog bite cases speaks for itself. They argue that public spaces, especially for children, have become unsafe, and that sterilization alone hasn't addressed rabies risk. But animal rights activists call the mass relocation plan unscientific and unfeasible. Pointing to Delhi's lack of lifetime shelters for dogs and only 20 animal birth control centers for the entire capital, they say poor municipal execution of existing laws should not justify what they call cruel and inhumane measures. Even if the existing animal birth control shelters are converted to permanent facilities, they could barely hold up to 4,000 dogs. The animal welfare regulations require 40 to 45 square feet space for permanent housing of dogs. Over 1 million dogs of Delhi will need 40 to 45 million square feet space for relocation. That's the equivalent to over 1,000 acres, or roughly 3 to 4 central parks of New York. In terms of Delhi, this would mean 10 to 12 Lodhi Gardens worth of space. Meanwhile, an opposition member of parliament has also written to the Chief Justice of India, urging a stay and review of the order by a larger bench. The court's directions are to be implemented immediately, with progress reports due in the next hearing. The authorities in Delhi say that they are ready to implement the court's order. This remains a developing story, and we will keep you updated. And that's all we have on this show. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to Firstpost.
From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, shedding light on the world's top headlines. Detailed analysis on the stories that matter the most to you. Catch it all on Spotlight at 6 p.m. India time and 12:30 GMT. Only on Firstpost.
Hello and welcome to